CFR 369 Live, the Cry Freedom Show with Lisa.com.
It's Tuesday, the 18th of April, 2023. This is a Cry Freedom Radio soundbite, CFR 369, and we're going to get a little bit of natural reverb on this one because, sorry as I am to voice this information upon you, but I'm actually in the bath chilling at the minute. As you can hear. Just seemed like a good place to do it, really, you know. So, what do I want to talk about today? Well, a couple of things. Current things that are happening, and as people know, I do like to keep an eye on the allegory that is the so-called mainstream quote-unquote news. It's, again, as I always say, about looking deeper, not just taking things at face value with regards to a headline. You have to go deeper and see the message behind the headlines, and it's not easy. It's very hard to work out sometimes, the codes behind. But at least if you try, then you're kind of on the right track, I feel. And so that's what I always try to do, and we've had loads of them lately as usual, and I see things coming out now about things changing, in that the whole COVID status, shall we say, in America has now been quashed and finished, and in actual fact the dreaded COVID shop near to me in my precinct has now completely gone. They've taken the sign away, the furniture's gone, so that was a nice moment for me to see that. And so I very much feel, as many of us do, that we've been through 3 years of needed kicking up the arse change. And again, it came down to those choices, didn't it, with regards to who chose which way to go, who chose what to believe and what not to believe, who chose whether to be frightened or not. And I'm not trying to say there's anything special about me because I chose to do things the way I did them, but I know I did the right thing. I just know that. And yeah, you know, it is what it is. Again, keep saying that, but it's just such an apt phrase, isn't it? It is what it is. To a large extent, people create their own reality with what they do and what they believe and what they allow that to allow them to take on board or not take on board. So I don't think that can be questioned, really, can it? There are things coming out all over the place at the minute on mainstream about various different topics that seem to be revealing much. A recent one I saw was about the BBC letting go of some of their top paid people. Now again, there's always going to be the cynics that are going to say, oh, this is all just a thing they're doing to make you believe that things are changing when they're not really. Well, they could be right. But if you allow yourself to be of that mind frame, do you actually in some ways bring it onto yourself in that belief? And I listened to someone recently speaking about the fact that when we are horrible or evil, nasty to someone else, you're basically doing it to yourself, because the energy that creates within you, that feeling is actually damaging your body and your health. And so the more you do that for the people, the more you injure yourself. And that's just, again, common sense to me. And again, many of us, I think, are at that time now where we're seeing these things so much more real, in real time than we have before. And we all get mad at people. We all feel badly done by at times. Of course we do. It wouldn't be human if it wasn't like that, would it? We wouldn't be in this world. We wouldn't be experiencing it if we didn't expect to get that. But it's how we deal with it, isn't it? And that's one thing that I've been meditating on a lot of late. People find this very hard to believe, but with those of us that are of pure heart, that we do actually feel from our heart, and we just want everyone to be loving and happy, and it's not love and light, it's just that natural harmony of energy, and we just want to pass that and share that with people. And so many people out there are so cynical that they can't get it, and they think you've got an ulterior motive, they think you've got evil behind doing it, and it's a horrible thing to experience when you know that you're not, but you can't prove it because that's what's inside that person that thinks that. They see it that way because that's how they think, that's how they feel, and so they foist that onto you and convince themselves that that's what you're doing. Again, it's the old mirror, isn't it? And again, I think we need to face these mirrors throughout our lives, because it's part of the growing up process. It's part of seeing. It doesn't mean you're some self-righteous person that's a pain in the arse. No, it just means you see it and you get it. It's like the difference, and again, I always use this one, but it's such an apt one. It's when you go out and you see, for example, a rat or a pigeon out there just getting about its daily life, etc., and you either look at it as total vermin and want to kill it, or you look at it as another sentient being that you just want to feel love for. And that's what I feel like. That's why I go and feed these things in the park. And people go on about the pigeons. Yeah, okay, but what's made that happen? It's humanity and it's cities and the way that it lives that's actually created that problem, hasn't it? The same with the rats, with all the rubbish. And so it's a direct result of our actions that these things have happened, but most people will never face that. They just blame these things like it's all these creatures' faults. You know, we had this recent thing at the Grand National, didn't we, with the big protests before the race, and I never watched it because I've been in the past, many decades ago, I went and I saw a horse get shot in front of me and carried off with its legs in the air in the back of a wagon with no dignity or respect whatsoever. It's the entertainment that people aspire to that is done at the cost of animals. And I don't care what anyone says about trainers treating these animals well. I'm sorry, but behind the scenes, this is a money-making racket, as is the greyhound racing. What goes on there is despicable, with so much suffering that these animals go through once they get past their sell-by date, you know? I mean, it's like when the horse breaks its leg, and it probably could be healed with the right care. And these people aren't exactly skint, you know, they do have money, but they're not prepared to spend it on the very things that are making them money, because it is literally a turnover of making money, and that's it. And I've been watching recently a lot of the old CBS Mystery Theatre audio plays. Absolutely loving them, actually. They're a bit corny in parts and you get all the da-da-da music type thing, but the messages within those, when you actually see it this way, and we're given these messages throughout the whole of all of them, it's all about the human emotion and what you do, and whether you do the right thing or the wrong thing, whether you make the right choice. That's where we're at now, whether you like it or not, that's where we're at. And the more that we see this and try and actually make those right choices, then the better it can only get, in my opinion. Because I do believe this isn't all just a 3D man-made, control system, awful structure. It's not. We get many messages within mainstream, many messages. And that's what I think it's all really there for. There has to be the bad. There has to be the evil. Without that, how can we know the good? I know that's an old cliche, but it's true. The point is whether you decide to fight the bad and go for the good, or you sacrifice yourself to your own needs, money, greed, wealth, materialism, all of that. Eating the stuff that you like eating because it tastes good. That moment on the taste buds, you condemn your body to so much because of that moment on the taste buds, isn't it? Really, let's face it, because there are many things we could eat that would make us feel full that aren't bad for us. Now, for example, when I have a fruit smoothie, I get quite filled up with that. It's quite filling. But I know I'm having good stuff. And, GMO aside, I can't do anything about that where I am. I can't grow my own fruit at the minute, so I just go along with it as much as I can and bless it and, believe it's doing me good. And it is I know it's doing me good because of the changes I see when I do it. So it's about the sacrifice. Okay, so some people would think, again, as I've said, I think in the last one, that you could go for another 10 years and eat every single thing you love, put on weight, fuck your body up, but just enjoy those taste bud moments. Or you could choose to still eat nice things that taste nice and nicer because they're doing you more good, and live a longer life. And that's the choice, isn't it? And everyone has a right to that choice, absolutely and completely. So getting back to mainstream, whichever way you look at it, stuff's happening now. So it either is this greatest deception ever, or it is the dawn of something new and a chance for people to see another way, see why another way is needed, see what's been done to them in the past and why they need to change for the better, to eventually, inevitably get a better life, a more fulfilling and happier life. And that's how I see it. And again, you can call me New Age until the cows come home. I don't care. That's how I see it. Again, that doesn't mean I'm not facing realities. I'm not fighting the things I do believe are borne down upon us. And I always try to highlight them, as people know. So I'm still doing that whilst trying to remain in a positive and, happy-ish frame of mind. And you can't always be happy, of course, because it is crap out there. There's so much crap out there. But we have to put that little bit of us, the light, out there, don't we? Again, another cliche, I'm sorry, but that is the truth. So I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up on Sunday. Sunday is the 23rd of April. And some of you will know right away. I wouldn't have known without prompting, to be honest, but so I don't really follow these things. But it's St. George's Day on Sunday, right? Now, for whatever that means, we know how much his story has been distorted. We know how many lies there are out there about what we are led to believe is truth, that isn't really real, how it's been twisted, inverted, etc., etc. But the point is that on Sunday, we are getting the very first ever UK emergency alert test on our mobile phones. Well, I won't be, because mine will very definitely be off that day and the battery will be run down. So for whatever reason, I don't know what it's all about, really. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's going to be a good message of something, I don't know. But the point is, for me, I've chosen to opt out of that. I don't want to have to be a part of that because I don't know what it is. And so, not knowing that, I'm going to err on the side of caution. So many thoughts go through your mind when you start getting a little bit paranoid about these things. It could be something to do with what's inside people now, or how this alert or this frequency that's going to come through your phone might affect you if you've had it, and how it might not affect you if you haven't, or vice versa. Again, it can be reinverted and reinverted for time immemorial. The absolute truth is that none of us really know, and so I'm erring on the side of caution. Not trying to be paranoid or negative, but I just don't want to be part of it, and I'm not going to have to click on some consent thing to be able to carry on using my phone, because it's my right to do it anyway. So that's my view on it. So, and I respect everybody else's view on it too. We've never needed these things in the past, so why now, you know? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the apparent whole St. George's Day stands for. So I'm out of the bath now just to carry on this and finish it off. So St. George's Day. Well, St. George's Day is the alleged feast day of St. George, which is notably England's patron saint. Also celebrated by Christian churches, countries and cities of which he was the patron saint, including Bulgaria, England, Georgia, Portugal, Romania, Alcoy, Aragon and Catalonia. So, it also says here, as a highly venerated saint in both the Western and Eastern Christian churches, St. George is connected with a large number of patronages throughout the world, and his iconography can be found on the flags and coats of arms of a number of cities, regions and countries. And obviously that all sort of comes back to England. Again, we know how much these things have been used as codes and spells almost on our whole existence for quite a long time, so who's to say what all of this really stands for? None of us really know, do we? But in my view, it's time for us to bring our own times back of celebrating the things that we choose to celebrate that mean something to us, and that aren't all hooked into all of this stuff that's been controlling us for a long time. And so this is just something I'm reading now. St. George, the man, the myth, the legend. St. George is the patron saint of England. School children are taught that he was a knight who slayed dragons, but is there more to the historical figure? St. George is thought to have been born into a noble Christian family in the late 3rd century in what is now modern-day Turkey. As a soldier and officer in the Roman army, he refused to denounce his faith and persecute fellow Christians, leading to his martyrdom in 333 AD. The myth of St. George slaying the dragon originated in stories of his valiance and bravery brought back by the Crusaders, who learned of him during the Middle Ages. Legend has it that George arrived upon a village where a dragon was terrorising the local people. To appease the creature, they had begun to sacrifice a sheep per day. Poor old sheep. To feed its hunger until they had no longer any sheep. This is just making me smile with the allegory. The king then decreed that they must sacrifice the local children to keep the dragon at bay. Each day the sacrifice was chosen by lottery until the king's daughter was selected. As she was being led to the dragon, George happened by. Horrified by what he discovered, because it was the king's daughter and not a child, he offered to slay the dragon. During his battle with the dragon, George noticed a vulnerable patch of skin under its arm and charged forward with his sword, slaying the beast. The villagers held a huge feast in his honour, and the feast day of St. George is celebrated each year in tribute to his bravery. King Edward III made St. George the country's official saint shortly after ascending to the throne in 1327. According to historian Ian Mortimer, a patron saint did not have to be from the country they were born in. They just needed to embody the characteristics the kingdom wanted to project to the outside world. Quote, St. George stands for the courage to face adversity in order to defend the innocent, the triumph of good over evil through courage. How very apt. The king who adopted him might be almost forgotten today, but for centuries St. George represented the idea of courageous leadership, and with it, the unifying popular will to be governed well and protected. End quote. I'm not sure whether I've got a popular will to be governed, but I realise that some people need to be, so there you go.
So I do just think it's very interesting that this is the very day that they've chosen to do this so-called emergency alert thing. So I guess we'll just see what transpires, huh? Interesting times.
CFR 369 Live, the Cry Freedom Show with Lisa.com.